Welcome, everybody. My name is Reinhard.
I'm Florian.
We are both from the Austrian Space Forum, and we're both not analog astronauts.
That's correct.
Which is apparently a bit of a unique thing here at this conference. I'm a flight director, and Florian is our mission photographer and GOST team member. What all of this is, I will explain in a minute. Our presentation is in two parts. First, I will give an overview about the Austrian Space Forum and the missions that we do. And then in the second part, there's a commercial break in the middle, and then, then Florian will give us an overview and will take us to the missions with his fantastic photos. And the timer is set, and we are ready for liftoff. So maybe you can...
I can do the slides. You just nod to me and I'll...
Okay. Perfect. So, quick overview about the Austrian Space Forum. We are a non-profit organization. We are a research association based in Austria, but actually we have a very international membership at the moment. It's about 140, 150 members, and from all over Europe and beyond even. We have, of course, our international Mars simulations, but this is not the only thing we do. So about 25 years ago, a group of students got together and they were like, we want to do something about space in Austria. And funny enough, 25 years later, when you type in Google space and Austria, you end up at the Austrian Space Forum. So this is what we do. We have hardware that is now, or was in space, it again deorbited. So we have two CubeSats that were in space in the last 2 years. We do other research projects with ESA and other organizations, and we do a lot of outreach as well. So this is where it all started for the Austrian Space Forum, with going to high schools, going to universities, giving lectures about space. Yeah, next one. Just a quick overview. This is one of our projects that's not Mars analog or analog related, but this is actually in space, detecting space debris in situ, in low Earth orbit, something that hasn't been done so much recently. And we were also working together with the ESA Space Debris Office. Both these satellites have deorbited, Adler 2 actually in the last month. Yeah. So, but just to give you an idea that we are not only doing Mars analog research, we are also doing space research in space. Just another overview about some of the projects. We also had balloon projects, we had robotics projects, worked together with ESA, with the Eurobot, and many other things. I'm not going into the details here, but this is really just to give you an overview about what the Austrian Space Forum is and what it does. Okay, next one.
But I think it was a milestone for the Austrian Space Forum actually to do like the Bacterma and PaxTex projects with ESA, because this was like the first time we kind of got a tender as a non-profit organization.
Yeah, remember the one PaxTex and Bacterma, because I'm going to talk about some of the outcomes in probably one of the next slides. Let's see. Yeah. This is my favorite picture that I put in all the presentations I give, because it really highlights what we're doing. We take... Well, what I as a flight director do, I take the analog astronauts by the hand. No. No. We do a lot of outreach. We reach out to the next generation. We try to give everybody the opportunities to join in this space adventure, and also to educate, of course, the public about all these projects that all of us do, to give them also, to show them that this matters, that this is important, what we do. Okay, next one. Yes, and now we get a bit more technical. This is, I think, one of the USPs that we have at the Austrian Space Forum. We have our own spaceship that analog astronauts can put on. It's an analog spacesuit simulator. It has been in development and in use since approximately 2007. So our Princess Aouda has seen a bit of wear and tear over the years. It's about 50 kilograms of mass. It always changes a little bit depending on the configuration. It's unpressurized, so we're not simulating that part of a spacesuit, but it is a very intelligent spacesuit. It has a lot of electronics in it, a lot for communication purposes, and sensors to detect CO2, oxygen, and so on, other values in the OBDH. The outer layer, and this is now where the ESA project from a previous slide comes in, is an outcome of the PaxTex program, where we were researching for outer layers for spacesuits. So the idea of the project was to look at what kind of outer layers can be put on spacesuits for actual space missions going to other planetary bodies, so the Moon or Mars. Because when you think about the Moon missions, the Apollo missions, maybe you've seen a picture of the astronauts when they came back with their shiny white suits after a few days. Only problem is, after a few days on the Moon, they were no longer shiny and white. They were completely gray, they were full of moon dust. And this was only after a few days. If you go to Mars, you probably will need to use the same spacesuit for many weeks, months, or even years. So the idea is that you avoid contamination in both directions, and you need a skin on the spacesuit that can help you with that. And this was this one project, PEXTEX, and we are using now the same material that was the outcome of this project. Yeah, let's move on. Okay, next I'm going to talk to you about our, it's a bit in the dark on the top, about our analog astronauts. So with the Austrian Space Forum, we have a different strategy when it comes to analog astronauts. We have every few years, every 5 years approximately, a selection round that is quite similar to what NASA or ESA does. So there's a round A, round B, and round C. Groups, and then we dwindle down from hundreds of applications to the final selection. And then, after this, the new crew was selected, they go through quite a lot of training before they actually become active duty analog astronauts in the Austrian Space Forum. Maybe just go to the next one so we have some impressions. The last class was in 2019. And then COVID came. Basically, they get selected. There are many hundreds of parameters that are checked, from psychological, physical parameters, and basic things to age, of course. So we have to limit also to a certain age group that, like ESA and NASA does. So for our analog astronauts, you have to be between 25 and 45 at the time of selection. So we realize this is a bit of restrictive parameters, but our spacesuits require this also. Also in terms of physical fitness, size. So if you're too short, too tall, these are all limitations that we have at the moment, because we have only 2 spacesuit simulators, AUDA X-ray and AUDA Sierra, and they have certain measurements, so that you can't fit just anybody in it. Yeah, let's just go through the next one. Yeah.
Maybe let me just chime in, like speaking from personal experience, because I also applied for the last call and actually made it to the B round, which is a great success for a Dumbo like me. But it was actually quite, also for me, having known the firm already before, quite impressive to kind of go through all these steps, like getting your body dimensions measured and according to NASA standards, and going through all this like psychological stress tests and outreach tests. So it's actually quite wide scope. So pretty impressive.
I have not gone through the selection myself, but I've seen and heard also from the analog astronauts that went through it that they learn a lot about themselves and each other just going through the selection process. And then once they're selected, they start with basic training, which goes over the course of 1 year, where they meet every now and then, like for I think 5 weekends per year, where they come together for training weekends, plus e-learning, plus online classes and meetings. And then they get to know each other even better, because they need to learn how to work together.
I'm already jumping through the slides, but it's okay.
Yeah, and we also have then, after the basic training, we have specific mission training, like the dress rehearsals and so on. So it really goes in there. And now I give you just a few impressions. We have communications training, of course. We use, they get practice in communication guidelines, the NATO alphabet, how to spell things, how to read out numbers, all of this kind of training, because not all of them have a military background, but they need this in order for proper communication. We do first aid trainings. We cooperate with the authorities. In this case, it's in Innsbruck, in Austria, where we have one of our headquarters. We have training with the hardware, with the communication hardware, so they of course need also to be able to set up the hardware themselves. We have of course training with the suits and how to put them on, how to take them off. A note about the suits: it takes about approximately 2 to 3 hours of donning, of putting on the spacesuit for each EVA. So this is really something where you have to think and look at the flight plan, what it says. And when the flight plan tells you, okay, you need to prepare at this time to go on EVA 3 hours later, that's what you do. Okay?
Yes. As we've heard a little bit about crew autonomy already, usually like once the mission is up and running, the AAs have authority once they're generally medically cleared to start the process by themselves. So that's like the first thing you hear on Earth after giving your readiness. At some point in the morning, the AAs will just write on the chat, donning started. And then everyone knows, okay, we have now at least 2-hour window until they're going to request to go for EVA. And so everybody starts like ramping up and scrambling to get the Wi-Fi up and everything.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we just get like milestones from the donning procedure, and then usually at the end they just request to go.
Yeah. Maybe we go a little bit ahead here with the explanation. We have a mission support center that is at the moment in Vienna in Austria, and we know, according to the procedures, when the field lets us know, when Mars lets us know where they are in the donning procedure, we know what to expect. So, for example, when they tell us they're at a certain step, we know, well, there's no rush, we can still get a coffee. But if they're at another step, we know, yes, the BMEs, everybody has to be ready, because now we go do the polling for EVA start with a time delay. Okay. Yeah, of course, there's also off-road training, ATV training, so the Analogue astronauts go through all of this as well. First without the suit, and then to be able to operate it with the suit as well. With the firefighters, we have trainings. I was lucky enough to also go through that myself, because I was in the next building, basically. So it's also nice to join the Analogue astronauts for these kind of trainings. And then, of course, we have the simulations. Quick overview. We have started with Mars Analogue simulations approximately 20 years ago. We started at MDRS. So we were guests at the MDRS station, and from that it developed further. We tried to find a niche in the space research niche of Mars Analogue research. So we said, yes, we want to develop our spacesuit ourselves. This was one of the goals. Okay, let's see. Maybe I should have mentioned this at the beginning. If you want to visit the Austrian Space Forum Mars habitat, you are in bad luck, because we don't have one. At least not a permanent one. We made it our mission for each mission to find a new location on Earth. So basically Earth is our Mars Analogue habitat. To find a place on Earth that is as Mars-like as possible from a geological point of view and so on. So you know all these details. And then we compare it and say, okay, this is a good place to go. We start negotiations with a host country. And then if everything goes well, at some point, a few years later, after we started preparations, we go there for a big mission that is approximately a 1-month mission, usually. So just go through the pictures. It's just really to show you how geologically you have such similar structures that in some cases are the same processes that generated them, or quite similar. Okay. Overview about the past missions. So I've joined the Austrian Space Forum in 2010, and my first bigger mission was the Rio Tinto mission, which was in Spain. Yeah, Bernard is nodding. He was also involved. We did, so in southern Spain, we did a mission in the Dachstein ice caves. So it's a giant ice caves where you have all year round ice, around 0 degrees. And normally they don't let you in there and just walk around wherever you want. But we got special permissions and through negotiations to also go into these ice caves. And it's amazing. They call them the mammoth ice caves, like the mammoth, because they're just so huge. So I recommend a visit if you come to the Dachstein region. We did a mission in Morocco, basically open desert. A mission on the Kaunertaler Glacier in Austria, so the highest altitude Mars Analogue mission that we know of. It was more than 3,000 meters, I think.
Correct.
Yeah. Then the Amati 18 mission, which was in Oman. Again, open desert, just nothing around, and you will see really nice impressions of that mission in the second part of the presentation from Florian. And then more recent, the Amati 20 mission, it's the next slide, was in Israel in 2021, because there was a little thing like COVID that happened, so everything was shifted. where we had a habitat that was part DMARS habitat from a local organization that got expanded to fit our needs of fitting 6 analog astronauts. So a lot of thought also goes into constructing of the habitats and always making it a bit different, because we want to also simulate and experience different types of habitats. We're also in close contact with some space architects from Austria, so or not only Austria, that also help us there. And the most recent mission was the Amadi 24 mission this year, March and April, in Armenia. So we did the mission in Armenia. We have a beautiful shot of Mount Ararat and the region there where we did the most recent mission. Yeah, let's go on. And here you have the habitat. So again, it looks completely different. The idea here was that it's a habitat that gets built into the hill. This was recently constructed, so it doesn't look as shiny or as fancy yet, because this was really constructed just as we arrived, and or just before we arrived, built into the hill, kind of, for radiation protection as a simulation there. Yes.
And I think there's a sustainable plan to keep using this facility for other, like for analogs, as well as for other types of conferences and meetings.
Yep.
And that's why the local organization decided to not go down the full fidelity, cramped small space, but have like a more multi-purpose footprint. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So for this habitat, there's also the ideas of maybe including school classes that one day can do analog missions there, or university classes and so on. Right. So it's really the idea to expand on this. As I mentioned before, we have a fixed core of analog astronauts, and out of this group of analog astronauts, for each mission, a few of them get selected, depending on availabilities and skills, to put together a crew of 6 analog astronauts that go on the mission with some backup astronauts, of course, if you need to swap somebody in last minute. This is the group from the last mission. So you have 6 analog astronauts. You have Carmen from Germany, Simone from Italy, Robert from Austria, Annika from Germany, Robert? No,
Thomas is Dutch.
Thomas, my God, yeah, first names. Thomas from the Netherlands, and Inigo from Spain. And so a very mixed group of analog astronauts. Continue. Yeah. And here's some impression of who else was there, because we don't only send the analog astronauts there, we have a full support crew, and that's the ground operations and support team, or lovingly called GOSTs of Mars. Because you're not supposed to see them, but they're still there doing the things that on a real Mars mission would be automated, or the analog astronauts would do them, but it would just take much longer time. And since we only have 1 month of time to do these simulations, because for us that's the sweet spot of you put a lot of effort into it and you want to get a lot of output, but at the same time they're all volunteers, so you don't want to stretch their time availabilities, their time budgets, their vacation times too much. And 1 month seems to be the sweet spot for us. So all the last missions were at around that mark. So that's why we have the ground operations and support team that supports the analog astronauts. They do things that happen outside, like charging a rover, getting a rover from A to B that would have taken a bigger effort, but they are not to be seen. So they sometimes do orbital drops of things that the analog astronauts need.
Yeah, maybe to chime in on that, as I also had the opportunity to co-lead that team for Judith and Elo. Yeah, we're kind of the buffer between the real world and the isolated crew. And since many of the experiment we accept come straight from academia and are not yet at a stage where they can be deployed autonomously on their own, so they still require a bit of massaging, recharging, manual driving, until we can kind of switch to autonomy and pass them kind of over to the astronauts and let them take control. So that's usually what we do. Kind of, we push the empty rover back to the base to recharge it, and then drive it to the hub, and then just type on the chat, beep bop, rover ready to go, and then the astronauts will take over and know that. So like in the mission architecture, in terms of time delay, we're on Mars, so we also have to make sure not to spoil mission fidelity for the planners, for mission control. So we kind of also have to be mindful of what to share on which loop. But like logistically, we're there, and we're kind of the enlonged, stretched, time-delayed hands for mission control to keep the thing running. Okay, sorry, yeah. I'm getting ahead of this slide.
Yes, exactly. So he's been talking about this. We have a 10-minute time delay. As you know, Mars is quite far away. The signal takes some time to travel there. We selected a 10-minute time delay because it's just annoying enough to realistically simulate the time delay and what it means for communication, but it doesn't hinder operations too much as if you go with the maximum of a bit more than 20 minutes time delay that you could have. So 10 minutes time delay is really this spot where it gets annoying, and you have to remind yourselves when you get maybe annoyed at the GOST people in the field or the Analogue astronauts, like, why haven't they responded yet? Yeah? When you realize they haven't received the message yet, or if they have received it, their answer hasn't come back yet. So this is, I also do trainings for new people that join the team, and this is what I always tell them, like, remember the time delay before you do anything else, before you send another message. Remember the time delay, because this really messes up communication for you. In a more or less real-time simulation environment where we write messages during the day to each other a lot to keep the simulation going, and not just emails overnight, for example. Because that, of course, doesn't need extra time delay because emails are anyway offline then. Okay, yeah, so we have, let me go back. So we have the experiments, we have GOST and the Analogue astronauts on one side, and the mission support center on the other side. We call it support center, a few groups call it control center, some call it support center. We used to call it a mission control center and then swapped to mission support center because we realized these guys are impossible to control. We can only support them.
Crew autonomy.
Yeah, crew autonomy. It's like hashtag crew autonomy. It's really a lesson learned over the last 20 years of Mars Analogue simulations that we've been doing. And for the last 10, 11 years, we've done everything with a time delay. Yeah. Okay, please. Yeah, this brings me to the support teams. So this is my realm as flight director. We have all the support teams that you've heard in previous talks already about. So we have BMEs, we have a media team, we have IT, we have a flight planning team that makes the plan for everybody on Mars, what they need to do and when they need to do it. It's also inspired, of course, what NASA and ESA do. What else can I tell you about? Yes, we also sometimes pose for pictures, but you don't see us as much because, of course, the Analogue astronauts are much more attractive on pictures. And we are there for the Mars crew. So whenever there is an issue coming in, the whole team in the Mission Support Center goes through procedures and tries to solve the problem. So usually it's an updated procedure from one of the experiments of our external partners that got an update overnight. Nobody told the Analogue astronauts, and that's our duty. So we go through the steps to send the Analogue astronauts an updated procedure, to inform them on the right channels, and then hopefully on time before doing the experiment, they realize they have to switch it to the green mode and not the orange mode or something like that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, just some views. You see my beautiful backside. I think it's the same shirt. And of course, you have people looking at screens. I mean, we can show you many pictures of this. It's a really great atmosphere. It's like any other control room that you walk into. You feel like, okay, this is not just people looking at screens and pointing at things. This is a Mars simulation. This is as real as the simulation can get. Okay. Let's see what else we got. Boots on the ground. So this is the other side, and some impressions here. I mean, basically a lot of keywords. I'm doing PowerPoint karaoke. I didn't put this slide. I didn't make this slide. But on the right, you see a bit the flight plan. So it should look familiar to you if you have seen these kind of things before. We work in 15-minute increments because with the time delay and everything, this seems to work best. And we have, lots of smiley faces, of course, from the Analogue astronauts. Okay.
And food.
And food, yeah. Yeah, food is very important. I mean, all of you know that, and especially the food that they can grow themselves. So we have also had microgreen experiments, to do this. Maybe a note about the experiments, you can leave this slide, is that, it's fine. A note about experiments is that not all of the experiments, that are sometimes 20 to 25 experiments, are Austrian Space Forum experiments. We have our own experiments, like the spacesuit, but we invite a lot of researchers to join us with their experiments, with their hardware, to join us on this mission. So we provide the infrastructure, we do all the negotiations with the host country, we provide, through the host country, a habitat, and then we invite people to come to us and propose experiments. So for the next mission, which will be in a few years, we don't have a fixed date yet, we invite you all to join us for the next mission, if you would like. We look for all kinds of experiments, from geological, human factors, medical, psychological, robotics, everything. Yeah? We have rovers, we have drones, you name it, we got it, basically. But as I mentioned, it's not all Austrian Space Forum, it's many, many partners.
I think it's more like the exception that experiments are run by the Austrian Space Forum themselves. It's usually human factors,
yes.
And other more like Earth side experiments that are proposed. So even though the PI might be part of the mission, the astronaut or analog astronaut conducting it will likely not be. I think looking back at Armenia, we had like one GOST member who's a geologist, Dominic, who had kind of set up his own experiment, the GEOS station inside the habitat. But apart from that, I don't think there have been like too many astronaut or GOST run experiments in the field.
More the psychological experiments.
Exactly. So
the spacesuit, yeah. Okay, let's continue. So these are just some impressions, what it looks like in the field. This was in Armenia. We had a public day there. Was it at the beginning of the mission, I think?
That's likely the public day in the
That was the
beginning,
kickoff, yes.
Yeah,
yes,
it is.
yes. So you have a lot of VIPs and students, young professionals, interested people join us in the middle of nowhere in Armenia for the kickoff of when the astronauts were walking into the habitat. Next, yeah. It's a shot habitat at night. Yeah, continue. It's something inside. Yeah, that's the Hort 3 space experiment where they were planting with a machine automatically, mostly, the seeds, so that at the end of the mission, or also during the mission, they could harvest some of the microgreens and spice up their food a little bit.
Sorry, jumped ahead to the...
Yeah, that's fine. Our analog astronauts have also a training routine. So before the mission, they need to train up, and then during the missions, they also have training additional to running a marathon every day in their spacesuit, or the equivalent. That's what the analog astronauts tell us what it feels like, physically, the effort of wearing the spacesuit simulator and all the layers that you have there. We have an exoskeleton as well that prohibits the movement a bit to simulate the pressurized suit. So it's all of jingles and bells, I guess. They need to train. We have, of course, then sponsors. So there is like a bionic for the undergarment, and we have some training vests that give you electrical stimulus to the muscles. So these are kind of like also experiments, but at the same time also help the astronauts stay in shape.
Yeah, so we will not provide like a peer-reviewed paper to these, but they get insights, kind of a somewhat qualified feedback from the astronauts about how applicable their product is for this environment. So.
And this is a good point about funding, because maybe this question will also come up. We are funded through sponsorships, through corporations where we have in-kind contributions, like that they provide us with these suits or other things. Some industry sponsorships where they help us with the construction or the maintenance of the suits, these kind of things. We are not government funded or anything like that. So we run by what we can get. And that's why we also have these amazing pictures that I'm again foreshadowing that we will see also later from Florian, because we need to communicate what we're doing for others to join us. Okay. Yeah, we also have a lot of human-robotic interactions. So this is the, which one is it? The one from Wels? Or? Actually not true. There were a couple that looked the same, but the point is you have a rover that can carry some boxes for you, that has some experiments on top of it, that can Raman spectrometer for something like this. Exactly. Basically, human-robotic interaction that they help you with the mission. And in past missions, we also had, for example, a cliffbot that was a rover on wheels that you could let down a hill, for example. So that's where you can, or a cliff actually. So where the analog astronaut, they cannot go, it's too dangerous. They can roll down a robot, a rover that can go there and then also come back to give you data. Yeah, this is what actually already was mentioned yesterday from TARM, the bioreactor simulator, which was also an experiment there. What else we got? This is actually a picture from a previous mission, Amadi 20.
That's Israel, yeah.
Yeah, Israel, that got sneaked in there. And let's just continue because there's so much to show. Here you see some of our GOST members discussing something about over the rover. We have to ask Lucas what actually was going on here. Analog astronauts working with the geological samples they took from outside on an EVA, analyzing them in the habitat. And of course, remote controlling one of our rovers with feedback. So there's a haptic feedback where you can really feel if the rover is going slightly uphill, you feel the resistance, for example. Or if there are stones in your way, you feel that. And controlling this rover, which is a 500, 600 kilogram a monster buggy, basically, that can carry quite a lot, and I think it can go quite fast as well.
Yeah, it's bricked, so we're not get to drive it at max speed. So, but it can go frighteningly fast. It also carries
on open space.
On open space.
Yeah.
It also carries the Raman. That's the silver shiny box that, thank you, Bernard, kind of managed to send to Armenia. All right, and that's a sunset.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly, the sunset over the area where we were.
All right.
And with this, I would leave you with these words. Why are you telling us that the sky is the limit when there are footprints on the moon and in our lifetime on Mars?
All right.
So, thank you. But there's more. This was part one.
But wait, so we've just met the half-hour mark. So this is thank you, Reinhard, for your lovely presentation. Exactly. There's some housekeeping to do.
Yes.
And 2 announcements that we kind of snuck in there.
But we have to switch presentation.
That's correct. So this is where you can reach Reinhard.
And our social media channels.
There's even more pictures, but
this is
those.
just
okay.
Yeah.
And I think this is mine. Yeah, exactly. Sorry. All right. So 2 announcements.
Okay. One announcement is for many years now, I think like 8 years or something like that, there has been the Vienna Statement on Analog Planetary Research. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe you even signed it. If not, it's exactly what it says. It's a statement about analog research, planetary research, and that it's a good thing to do, to put it like that. So we have quite a lot of signatories already that signed this document. It's like a 2-3 page document that gives an overview about analog research, what it is, what we do, why we do it, and that a list of all organizations that are there support this movement, that analog research is not just playing in the sandbox, but is actual research. So if you are interested, just Google the Vienna Statement on Analog Planetary Research or VSAPR and take a look there if you're interested. Okay. Next commercial is about the world's biggest analog. You have probably heard about that, and the Austrian Space Forum is also part of it. The plan is that we are going to provide the Mission Support Center, but we're not calling that because that would be confusing, so it would be the Mission Coordination Center. And if you're interested in joining us in mission operations or as one of the analog missions that run during this period next year, I think it's going to be September, October, if it hasn't changed yet, then you can also contact us if you would like to work with us in Vienna in the Mission Coordination Center. Yeah. Okay, commercial break over.
Perfect.
Now,
Cue the beauty shots. All right. So we have about 20 minutes left, including the Q&A. So I'm gonna blast through my images and just give you an idea like how this whole thing developed from my perspective. So hi again, I'm Florian. I'm a media artist by training, commercial photographer, and I was looking basically for topics to do some reportages about in 2015. And among my list was like spaceflight. And so I naturally ran into these guys while doing the research and learned about their 2015 simulation atop the Kaunertaler Glacier. I got accredited as a journalist, went up there for the press day and took a handful of photos and was like, okay, that's interesting. I want to see more. And this is like how an almost 10-year journey for me started. So what was supposed to be like a summer project to kind of show some pictures when university would start in the fall term, kind of spiraled out of control. You've already seen a picture of Carmen during dawning, and I think the habitat or like the station was called Base Camp 1 or something. It was a beautiful white tent with beautiful lighting. So actually in terms of lighting scenarios, I couldn't have asked for anything better than what they provided, on purpose, I assume. That's a close-up shot of the exoskeleton Reinhard was hinting on. So it's basically a set of springs that would just restrict any motion starting from here. So this would be like a natural posture in the suit, and everything deviating from this would require muscular force. Because I didn't, of course, I didn't know all of that back then. I was invited to also cover the first preparations for the next big mission to Oman in 2018 already in the spring of 2017, starting with like radiation, sort of qualification or testing of the suits in the physics department of the Uni Innsbruck. There was some cryogenic testing of the suit with Analogue astronaut Inigo Munoz Elorza inside. This is mission specialist Michael Müller. Preparing to doff the helmet. That's kind of frozen with condensed air humidity. It's one of my all-time favorite shots. It's like I just like boxed away. I think Judith or someone else just to get that one, and I'm super happy I did. Sorry. And this all led then to me participating in the 2018 mission to Oman in order to be admitted as a field crew. Like the bar was rather high, so I had to do the same training that all the other field crew had to do. And in terms of isolation, the procedure was a little bit, or like the setup was a little different than we do stuff today. So there was a team of, I think, 5 Analogue astronauts and about a dozen support crew confined together in a camp in the Omani desert. The Omani partners gladly set up this huge inflatable that we actually didn't really commission, but it was like, oh wow, we have like much more space now. And this thing was surrounded by basically a container village of sleeping quarters, sanitation containers. The mission control was in this brightly illuminated container back there. There was a radio comms container next to that and an observation tower. So it was like a small compound in the midst of the desert. And it was, in terms of confinement and isolation, it was just the most beautiful thing I've ever seen so far. Like, it was just brilliant, because there was nothing apart of the occasional camel that would drop by to pay us a visit. So almost no vegetation, almost no wildlife there. Oh yeah, we got bussed by F-16s once when the Omani Air Force took like the honorary guard of our mission. They kind of surprised us back doing like this low fly pass-bys one morning, which was a bit terrifying.
Do you want to say something about the camels?
The camels? I mean, I haven't seen them in person actually, because I was at duty at the station, like at the console.
Yeah. So the military made a perimeter around it, and then they were radioing in and saying, so there are some camels coming to your camp, should we shoot them? And we're like, no, let them live. Yeah, so.
Oh, they had like this buggy, with like a tent atop, is that they're like really mobile and really used for the terrain, and you usually don't see them, but they're always around. Like sometimes you see like a little dust cloud, and that's the scouts kind of doing the thing, and just the radio and like, found some camels, should we shoot them? Like, please don't. All right. I actually looked this picture up yesterday night as a kind of a remark to the para-astronaut panel yesterday. These things are called Ziesels. They're tracked vehicles manufactured by an Austrian company called Matro. and they're basically off-road wheelchairs. And we had used them in that mission as a support vehicle. We kind of retrofitted them with these kind of cages in the back. And I'm so bummed that I didn't find a picture in time, but these things kick up a lot of dust. And so naturally, the first thing we did was like go full Apollo 11 and duct tape kind of bigger fenders made from cardboard to it, like the boxes from the AC units were then retrofitted as fenders. And these things looked hilarious. I should have done like a proper beauty shot of them afterwards as well. But it actually worked. But yeah, we put those to the test as well. And yeah, just for me as a photographer, this was just the most beautiful thing I could ask for. Like the closer shots with the astronauts, like in the view, done during bridgehead phase. So during the time where we're still like qualifying, checking for radio comms, and doing the first sort of test EVAs. So this is why I'm a bit closer. But in the end, I had to kind of also move out and let them do their thing and observe from afar. Only after they returned to the hab in the evening, like once they reported as we're back at hab, then I could call out to the ops and say like media for ops, media request for 2 minutes. Can you call the astronauts whether they're still into it? And usually we're like, yeah, okay, let's have a 1 minute shoot. So I would have prepared already, and then it's like, okay, let's step inside real quick, one shoot, and then you're off for doffing. So this was like the beauty of having like both the support crew and the astronauts in one camp. So there was like a little bit of leeway I could use after the EVA. That shot of Gernot Grömer in the suit on the top of an outcrop is like the last place you would want to see an astronaut during a mission, like on their own atop a hill after sunset. It's like all no-go parameters. But I had scouted that hilltop before. I like went up the send mission. Like there's a form called the mission plan change request form. There's an abbreviation for that, for everything. So I had to fill out that form, provide the location, provide the inclination, and then they would give me the go a couple of days later and did a small deviation of the traverse plan to let him hike up there. And what you don't see there is that there's safeties on the other side of the hill. So they were waiting directly in line of sight for him not to fall. All right. Yeah, but so this is like the way I could take pictures without breaking sim. So for the astronauts, it would look like, oh, there's something we would need to do there. And so they would go there, but it was a photo op dressed as a scouting trip. This is the habitat in Israel that you've already seen from the top view in the Negev desert, in the Ramon crater. Liad Yosef posing in front of the airlock, that's why he has no helmet on. And that's Annika Melis and Carmen Köhler during the first all-female EVA of the Austrian Space Forum. And now we are already ramping up for the recent Amadi 24 expedition. So I'm now giving you a kind of a bit of a peek behind the curtains. This was during dress rehearsal, the last one, like I think 2 or 3 before the mission. Again, Thomas Winian returning from EVA. We occupied a warehouse of the logistics company we cooperated with to test all the equipment before we packed it for shipping. Robert Wild in the suit. This is the auxiliary power switch momentarily before being switched to internal power. So that's like one of the last steps before they go for EVAs. Like we switch off the power, remove the umbilical, and then they're on battery, like on their own. That's again a similar perspective you've already seen. That's the fully staffed FCT. So you have all the positions on duty. There's medics, contacts, EarthCom, the 2 FDs, records. Who else do we have? I think I went through most of them already.
BMEs and human factors.
The BMEs and yeah, exactly. In the far end, left to left, actually, yeah.
But let me remind you about the flight plan. We have a few minutes left, and we need some time for questions and answers.
I mean, you talked for half an hour, and now you're pushing me. Come on. And so these are some of the shots I took in Armenia. Some beautiful, I think they're called lenticular clouds, right? Taken from the drone atop Mount Ararat. That's again the habitat you've already seen at night. It's a bit hard to see the projection, but there's the massive summit behind the astronauts returning from EVA. Again, another EVA shot of the panorama in the back. And now I'm switching my hat from photographer to GOST member. These are just a couple of pictures of GOST members I just like to throw in there because I usually just show the suited astronauts and not too much what's going on behind the scenes. Christian Schwarz as a safety, hence the orange jacket, and the little cheat sheet that we carry that contains the most important medical procedures, the medical questionnaire. So just if you're in stress, the first 3 things you need to do are on there at all times, and we need to learn that by heart. When we always carry it if we're on safety duty. Teamwork makes the dream work, so sometimes you just gotta carry all hands, or like gather all hands you can get and haul stuff up. That's part of the Hortory Space greenhouse tent that we're carrying there. There's also Judith in the frame, who's also with us today, I think still. Or did she leave already? Ah, there she is. Also one of the GOST commanders. That's yours truly, yelling at someone on the radio. And also Lucas, who's somewhere hiding in the back. There we go. Also another one of the GOST commanders, monitoring the nameless rover being parked into the container. And again, Lucas in his natural habitat. That's what you would see him do usually. So on some type of outcrop, mounting and aligning some type of antenna. So it's what we do. Oh, again. And now to switch over to our lovely. There's Elu, of course. There you go. So just to see, like this is how I know these guys usually, like dirty, sweaty, dusty, sleep deprived, but very effective and smiling. And of course, this is how our evenings look like. Then these are like the debriefs after the Bridget phase setup days. Okay. And I just really wanted to show the next 2 images because these are Armenian GOST members, like this is Lucine and Hannah, both of which really excelled in kind of going beyond themselves, but just voluntarily doing way more hours and way more shifts that they would have to do because they're kind of really latched onto the idea of the mission. And this is so cool to see, to have like a local crew that we more or less started to train on site as well, but just, going above and beyond themselves to kind of contribute to the mission and taking over so many important works that we just would have not been able to do. Yeah, and that's, I think, it's way too dark. One of the last images that I took, that's some of us just, doing the last haul down the mountain. So this is the very end of the mission when we closed up shop, locked the containers and left the place. And it's kind of emotional for me to see this image because everything is in such a hurry. So even I sometimes just forget to document, and it's like, moment, this is like the end for this mission actually. And so this is like why I put this thing in the end here. Yeah, I think that's it. Thanks for your attention. I hope you still have a couple of more minutes. So your questions, please.
So thank you guys. I think it's amazing that, I think that and the news. It was amazing to see those images again because, what a mission.
Yeah.
What trauma are they?
Thank you. Thank you for the amazing presentation. So it looks like your missions are pretty logistics intensive. You go to a lot of locations with some pretty big equipment. Could you elaborate more on what logistics looks like for you guys, how you go about that? Do you contract it out? What does that look like for you guys?
Yeah, I think you should take that probably.
Okay, yeah. So as you said, logistics is a huge headache, usually, especially if you go from Austria to outside of the EU, so you have customs to follow and so on. We don't make our lives easier because of doing this. So this is, we have usually cooperations with logistics companies. So in the last 2 missions, it was Gebrüder Weiss. They were basically from their side providing people that would help us with filling out the forms, getting everything ready, checking all the battery labels, that all the safety labels, that everything is there, because you maybe know about all of this, yeah, okay. It's really a nightmare. They want things from you that you didn't even think that you needed to mention this. Yeah? Even laptops that you put in there, everything. So yes, we actually have corporations. We coordinate with companies, and they are so excited to join us in these projects usually that they provide the human power for helping. And also from our side, we have some people who are specialized in this to link with them. Because how do you declare on a custom sheet analog spacesuit simulator? How do you declare that? How do you write that down? So you have to go to the component parts. Okay, you have these batteries, they have these capacities and so on. We have a computer in there, we have this in there. And you need to explain it to sometimes to a very bored customs official that doesn't really care about what you're doing. It's a challenge, yes, especially also with transportation. So we usually have the last dress rehearsal before the mission, a month and a half before the actual mission. So in this case, it was in January and the mission started in March at the beginning, so that we can put everything together, put it out to be shipped to the logistics company. They put it into containers, or we put it into the containers also, and then it gets shipped with a lot of backup time, because the worst case that can happen, and it almost happened to us when we were going to Oman, it was on a freighter. There was a storm. They lost a few containers. Our container was only half full, so you usually put the light ones on top. And we were lucky that we didn't lose any of the hardware, so our container was safe, but they lost a couple of containers. So you sit there and you don't know if everything is gone. So that's quite stressful also. Because
but like the storm happened in the Atlantic off the coast of Spain, and so the ship went through the Gibraltar Strait and anchored somewhere next to, I think Mallorca or somewhere, to just check for everything on board. So for like a couple of days we knew there had been an incident, the ship's still afloat, but they don't themselves have no idea what's still on that ship. And so it was kind of a nail biter for quite some time. And then they just stampeded down the Suez Canal. We could just see them like going at full knot speed. It was pretty cool, but they just made it in time.
Yeah, but it's just like when you launch your rocket. After it's launched, you just have to hope it arrives.
Yeah, but this is actually, maybe to chime in on that, that's actually also something that we request from the PIs and from the guys submitting experiments. So there's standardized forms asking for material safety data sheets, really specific information about batteries, about comms equipment, because everything needs to be kind of FCC'd and so on. Yeah.
Imagine you really have to think about lead times. If you're dealing with certain materials, certain countries will have lead times. You can't just in an instant decide to travel somewhere. You got to plan out 2 months or so.
But that would be, again, a step earlier, and there's this thing called a Memorandum of Understanding that requires and requests these things from the host nation, host country, to say, like, we need this time to lead up, yeah?
Let's get some other questions in.
Thank you.
Sure. I didn't blow the time.
Yeah, I have a few questions. Like, you mentioned that you select the crew once in 5 years kind of thing. So, and why? My question is, why is it that? Because other analog missions probably do a few missions every year, and they select crew every year. Like they do more missions and more crew. But is it due to the logistics part of it, or like what stops you, prevents you from selecting more crew? More crew groups every year, basically. Every year, every couple of years.
You could ask the same question to ESA or to NASA, basically. Or to ESA specifically, because they do a selection every 10 years sometimes. So, it's on point, it's logistics, because we don't have so much Mars simulation going around for all the analog astronauts to fill. But on the other hand, it's also training. The basic training spans over a full year. So if you do selections and trainings and then mission-specific trainings, it's a lot of logistics to put it together with also organizing the Mars simulation. Because we put a lot of effort into the selection, and we also select teams. we don't select individual people, we select teams. We look at how they work together during the selection process, and this is how also they got chosen. And it's if you watch our Analogue astronauts working together, solving problems, going in front of the media, and the next time, 5 minutes later, already helping with the suit again and going back and forth. They're really professionals at what they're doing, and it's amazing to watch them work together as a team. And to get this team cohesion, you need some time together. So it's not one single issue why we don't do selections every year, for example, but it all comes together, and this is why it is. Yeah.
I mean, just listening to them on the radio, like when they're conducting experiments, is just another thing. Like if you're top of a hill, you see these two shiny dudes down there somewhere doing something, and you listen, and it's like it sounds like ISS comms. So they're just like going back and forth between ops, science operations, and the two astronauts, and they're, you know, it's really second nature to them. And I think it's nothing that you can kind of achieve with a brief training or anything. It's just like something that takes years to kind of absorb.
Yeah. They can finish each other's sentences.
Yeah.
So I have one more question maybe. The question is like you mentioned that you rely completely on private funding and not any federal or government funding. So is that due to a specific reason, or it's just out of preference? Because we just saw yesterday that the Polish government increased funding drastically for even missions. So yeah, that would be my question.
I don't know if it led me back to Austria if I answer this honestly, but there are many reasons. But I think one thing is that it gives us more flexibility also.
Okay.
Let's go with this diplomatic answer.
Okay. Thank you for your answer.
But Steve, you got EU funding, so you got some very nice funding based on proposal
on
competitive.
The projects, yes, that's true.
Yeah, it was great to follow, to contribute to some of the campaign. I mean, remember we had a campaign 2009 together in Eiffel and several other campaigns. Now I see that you have so much professionalized, in particular the mission support task, and I had the chance to also follow some of the rehearsals that you have obtained. Now, some of my students followed also some training in mission support. So do you still do that? And in particular for next year, for this World Global campaign, so can we send some of our mission support team to train before? And are we going also to have, can you adapt also the mission support task for different scale of a mission? That would be very useful for us.
So this is actually something I thought that I should talk about and didn't, so thank you for the question. We have the Analogue Mission Basic Training and Analogue Mission Advanced Training. So a few years ago, 8 years ago, we started to realize the missions are getting so complex that we need standardized training courses for everybody who joins. So we have the basic training, which is approximately 10 to 12 hours of lectures, plus some scenario training, plus some reading, plus an exam that is quite sophisticated. Like it takes hours to fill out this exam on their own time, so to do also their own research. They are allowed to use all the material. Because the point is that they deal with the material and start thinking like we think. So communication is, for example, a big part in this spacesuit operations. It touches on everything, the basic training, because also the flight controllers that we have, the scientists, so we also invite the external partners to do this course so that they have a better understanding of how we run the missions, so that they can prepare the experiments better. So this comes all together in the AMBT, Analogue Mission Basic Training. And yes, we're planning to do this again next year, starting with a new cycle, basically. Also in preparation for the world's biggest analog, there have been some talks that we can do like a basic course that is applicable to everybody, with input from the different organizations, and then maybe have some specialized courses that are specific to the different habitats, different analog missions that don't make so much sense for somebody else. So the idea is to continue, of course, with this, yes.
And on top of that, then it's the AMAT, the advanced training?
And then there's the advanced training, yes, also. That is more specific. So after the basic training, if you choose to join the Austrian Space Forum and our teams, you become part of a team, and then you can do an advanced training in most cases where you specialize in certain areas. So that could be the remote science support, the flight planning, where you learn how to do a traverse plan, where you learn how to, or for the media team also, where you learn how to chaperone other people when they give interviews or give interviews yourself. So it's really, it's a full package. Doing an analog mission is not only one thing for us, but it includes everything around it.
Yeah. And then if you want to come to the field, like as part of GOST, then you usually need to have both of them, and you need to requalify each other year. So either do an advanced training, or we do have like these refresher trainings where we gather the analog astronauts and some of the GOSTs just to boot up the suits, set up a bit of the Wi-Fi, just to see, verify whether everything is still working, and just to keep people a bit trained and engaged. So we're going to do this, for instance, I think around the science workshop. I think there's a plan that some of the GOSTs will meet to just set up a couple of things, meet up, and this will then account as a requalifier, and then you're good for the next 2 years. Yep. Or you participate in a mission, then you're also good for the next 2 years. So this is like the way we try to keep like a core team of people that are somewhat experienced and trained to pass on the knowledge, transfer the knowledge. So we do not have to start from scratch each mission.
And it's open to everybody who would like to join. So it's not only Austrian Space Forum. Of course, we are happy if afterwards there are some people that join our teams as well, because we always need people.
Yeah. Myself and Thomas have both done AMBT. I think in 2020, I did 2023, not with the intention of joining necessarily, but it was a very interesting experience to learn how the professional operations work. So it's very accessible. It's a weekend course online.
Exactly. Yeah. It spreads over some weekends.
There's a lot to take away, even if you kind of are planning to do your own analog. So even if you have experience, I think it's always good to kind of just see how other organizations work, and it's a rather low bar instead of like joining an actual mission, just to see like how we guys are thinking, conducting ourselves, blah blah blah. Yeah. There's a question from Charlotte over here.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, just to follow up on Sam's question, wouldn't it be more ideal to record these trainings and just make it online available so you don't have to keep training people and it's just plug and play?
They are, but you need to sign an NDA. Yeah, no, we have them. They're not online, but they are accessible via videos as well. Yes.
Yeah, it's all video courses basically. So once you kind of start the process, you get like your work packages, and it's like there's a video link. Watch these lectures, fill out these questionnaires. So
but not right now, because we need to redo them after the last mission. We update.
Okay, because I think when I did it, it was still online with Killian was teaching. So
when was that approximately? Pre-COVID, post-COVID?
2023.
Yeah,
3.
Think?
Okay.
Yeah, we did 23. We did a couple of courses. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, never mind. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for the amazing presentation, by the way.
Thank you.
Cool.
Okay, so
There's, I think, one final question.
I think we have one final question, and then
we're gonna wrap up.
everybody's hungry and falling asleep.
Yeah,
Not because
that's the
it's
problem.
not
We're
interesting.
standing between you and lunch.
Yes,
Exactly.
you are. I imagine you're the target right now. So one last,
Lock
and then
the
we go.
doors.
And I'll try to be very brief, especially to the point that was just raised and to the whole discussion that we're having that we need to have more standardization. Would you be open, maybe in collaboration with other parties, either on CHASM or outside, on developing even a basic or like ultra basic open course that could be delivered by any one of the organizations based on some specific ILOs that could be discussed? Or would you have this as kind of a core product of the Austrian Space Forum that you want to maintain?
It's an interesting question, because if we say now no to cooperation, what does it make us? Yeah? No, of course we would be open to cooperation there, because it's a great idea to get other perspectives. But as you mentioned, it's also one of our core products. So we have to balance this out. I don't think this is something we can answer right now. But we're definitely open to talks and see how can we make this better, because we are not so conceited that we think we do the best thing and since sliced bread or something. How does the saying go? Yeah. So we would really welcome cooperations there as well, of course. Yeah. So let's keep the conversation going.
I think there's just so much experience that's kind of proceduralized in the documents that we use, or that. So I think On the one hand side, you cannot give like away everything to the public domain. On the other hand side, the trainings are somewhat open, right? So you can attend and you can learn, and then nobody's gonna sue you if you find similar solutions to challenges you face in your own analog, right? So this is not like how things work. Of course, everyone is open to committed to open science and the way information is shared.
Yeah.
But still, there would need to be like some sort of fine line between kind of training the people that commit to the Austrian space firm analogs, and then of course share the knowledge and spread the knowledge in the other analogs as well. So I think that, that there's still room for kind of development, I think. So, but it's a super valid point, I think, as well.
Like the general things that apply to everybody. What is an analog science? What are Mars, Moon analog missions, planetary analog missions? What are some background information? This could be like the basic course that anybody can do online with whatever platform, and then you specialize in the different mission-specific ones. Yeah. So I think we're already going a bit in that direction with the world's biggest analog.
Yeah. I mean, there needs to be coordination and standardization anyway once we kind of link MCCs together, because people need to have a common language, a common common terminology. Yeah.
Hmm? Maybe.
I mean, this taps into this kind of, is the Austrian Space Firm a commercial or non-profit organization?
Yeah.
But it's kind of drills into this core decision, like, do you stuff for profit or not for profit? When it's kind of somewhere in there. I think there's, of course, a valid point, and I think it's an opportunity, and probably someone should step up to kind of fill that gap.
There is, in the US, there is an organization that does that, and they have made some friends doing that. I think we can say not much more than that without being contentious. So it makes the motivations behind why you train and who you train very interesting, if it's for profit, because you now want to train as many people as you can and do it as much as you can. Whereas AMBT was really valuable and it was a really interesting experience, but I'm not sure it has mass market appeal. No offense. But it was really interesting as
good,
to see how you operate. I don't know if I would have paid for it. And I'm not sure if I paid for it, I might have wanted something different from it. So it puts pressures on you to change what you're doing, which I'm not sure is necessarily worth it. I don't want to start a fight with anyone online, so I'm not going to say anymore.
But I think it's, as a general kind of balance, I think it's good to have like AMAT and MBT like as open as possible as, for people to join, to gather knowledge, to also train themselves, and then to be more strict and more tedious when selecting analog astronauts. I think this is like the balance that Austrian Space Firm does. Like, if you want to contribute, be part of any of the teams, try to get to the field crew if this is what you want, and then wait for the next opportunity for the AA call to open up and apply for that. But there's a rather slim chance that you will be actually in the final five or final whoever we would select. But yeah, I think it's a good chance to just gain experience. Okay.
Yeah, good chance for lunch now.
A good chance for lunch as well.
Thank you so much again.
And we have that thing. We didn't even touch on that thing. It's now in Innsbruck at the Austrian Space Forum facilities. If you want to train something in low gravity, you find the contacts on the website. It's cool stuff.